Hey guys, I know it's been a while since I've uploaded. I just want you to know I'm not dead, and I haven't quit my channel or anything like that. I've just been really busy recently, and I thought I would just make this shorter, rambly video because I wanted to talk about the new Napoleon movie that is going to be coming out pretty soon, and why I have concerns about it. Now, I am a massive fan of the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic War era. I think it is possibly the most interesting period of history, with Napoleon Bonaparte being possibly the most fascinating and complex figure in history. I mean, seriously, his life just reads like a work of fiction. It's incredible. Which is why I think there are so many great opportunities to make actual works of fiction just based on Napoleon's life. It's honestly a great tragedy that Napoleon has been so thoroughly ignored by American cinema. I mean, yeah, there have been some stories about Napoleon, but none that ever really reached the mainstream. There was the 1927 5.5 hour movie Napoleon that almost no one remembers. There was the excellent and very underrated 1970 movie Waterloo, produced in the Soviet Union, that bombed at the box office. There was the 2002 four-part Napoleon miniseries produced in France that not a whole lot of people know about. But that's kind of it. I think Napoleon is a hard character for American audiences to get invested in. A lot of Americans don't know that much about the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars because they aren't seen as having anything to do with American history, even though they have more to do with American history than you might think. In contrast, there have been so many American films produced about World War I and especially World War II because we are more familiar with them, and we directly participated in them. It makes us feel a personal connection to those types of stories. So you might think I would be ecstatic about the new Napoleon movie directed by Ridley Scott starring Joaquin Phoenix. It's set to be a major big-budget Hollywood blockbuster with a critically acclaimed director and actor. This is it. This is what puts Napoleon on the map and gets American audiences more interested in this fascinating historical figure and time period. And I guess I am optimistic that Ridley Scott's film will lead to more stories about this era being produced in American cinema in the future, but I'm not really expecting the movie itself to be all that great. And there are multiple reasons for that, but I'll just focus on my main worry. This movie is too damn big. I just want to put some things in perspective for people who might be casual viewers going into this film. Going by the trailers, we know that this movie will probably start in 1793, when Marie Antoinette was sent to the guillotine. And we know that the movie will be going all the way up to the last battle Napoleon ever fought, the Battle of Waterloo, which was fought in 1815. That is 22 years of history that this movie has to cover. When American audiences think of massive wars, our minds usually come to World War I and World War II, both of which lasted 4 to 6 years. But the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars went on for way fucking longer. Really, it was actually a series of 7 wars called coalitions that were fought against France by the rest of Europe for 23 years, which doesn't even include things like the 6-year Peninsular War fought in Spain and Portugal. This is an incredibly dense and unbelievably complicated period of history. And even if you just want to focus on Napoleon and ignore all of the surrounding figures and the context of the time that he lived, there is still so much stuff to cover. Definitely way more stuff that can be fit into a 2-hour and 40-minute movie. Now, there are ways to make a great movie about Napoleon. Like I was talking about earlier, Waterloo in 1970 is a great example. Instead of trying to cover Napoleon's entire life, it just focuses on the end of his career. The prologue of Napoleon's first abdication at the start of the movie does a good job of getting the audience to understand everything they need to understand about the situation Napoleon is in 1814. Then the rest of the movie is laser-focused on the 100 Days, with a whole hour of the movie just being dedicated to the Battle of Waterloo alone. The movie is tight and focused, and works because it is focused on portraying one small part of Napoleon's life and one major battle, and doing it really well. But Ridley Scott is attempting to make a film covering Napoleon's entire life that will allegedly feature 6 major battles. if we do some calculations, considering the set timeline of 22 years for the film and the runtime of the film, the movie is going to have to be covering about 1 year every 7 minutes. So yeah, my main worry is that this movie is going to be a rushed mess. It will feel more like a slideshow of Napoleon's greatest hits than an actual narrative to get invested in. The 2002 Napoleon miniseries had 4 1.5-hour-long episodes, which comes out to 6 hours in total, and it still felt rushed. If someone is going to make a film based on Napoleon, it doesn't make much sense to try to cover his whole life in one film. There is too much stuff to cover. Ridley Scott should have taken a page from Waterloo 1970 and told one single narrative about Napoleon's life. There are tons of examples to choose from that could be a movie all on their own. Napoleon's first Italian campaign could be its own movie. Napoleon's Egyptian campaign could be its own movie. Napoleon's coup of 18th Brumaire could be its own movie. Or alternatively, if you do want to cover Napoleon's whole life, then make it a trilogy of movies. The first could be Napoleon's rise to first consul, culminating in the Battle of Marengo. The second could be Napoleon's rise to emperor, culminating in the Treaty of Tilsit. And the third would be Napoleon's dramatic fall from grace, culminating in the Battle of Waterloo. But yeah, as it stands, trying to cover everything in one movie and have it actually be good? No, I'm sorry, I just don't think it's possible. And people might say that I should trust Ridley Scott's genius because he's a brilliant director and he knows what he's doing. And listen, I've watched The Martian. I thoroughly enjoyed it despite its scientific inaccuracies. And I've heard the Alien movies are pretty good too. But Ridley Scott only made one other historical film, Gladiator, also starring Joaquin Phoenix. And if I'm being honest, I don't really like that film very much. I think it's kind of boring and dull and isn't nearly as interesting as it could have been. And Gladiator is a way more simple and small-scale story compared to what the Napoleon movie is going to be. So quite honestly, no, I don't really have great confidence that Ridley Scott will deliver with Napoleon. Anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts on the new Napoleon movie. Just wanted to get them out there before it comes out. I did actually want to add one more thing before I go, though. In my opinion, the best way to portray Napoleon's story isn't even on the big screen. It's on television. See, one other reason why stories about the Napoleonic Wars haven't been super popular in America is that there's no well-defined hero or villain to root for or against. We tend to like stories about heroes and villains. That's why there are so many stories about World War II. The Nazis are the obvious and unequivocal bad guys, while the Allies are the unequivocal good guys. You could just go the route of, making Napoleon the good guy, like in the 2002 French miniseries, or you could go the route of making Napoleon the bad guy, like it seems Ridley Scott's Napoleon is going to do, judging by the trailers. But the truth is more complicated. Napoleon did heroic things, but overall, he was no hero. But neither were his enemies either. Take Tsar Alexander of Russia. Arguably Napoleon's most unyielding foe. He was a power-hungry, delusional, theocratic whack job obsessed with raping Poland, and was arguably a bigger tyrant than Napoleon ever was. The French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars defy a simple good guy versus bad guy narrative. They were an extremely complex and often morally gray conflict with bad people on both sides. But the thing is, morally gray stories like this have been gaining in popularity recently. A great example, amongst others, is Game of Thrones, a medieval political thriller that defied the old conventions of storytelling by having a very complicated and morally gray conflict that constantly evolved over the course of multiple seasons. I mean, yeah, the series shit itself during the second half, but when it was actually following the story of a good writer, it was really good, and the most popular show on television, with, a new prequel series in full swing right now. Would it not be incredible to see a full-scale historical series in the same vein as Game of Thrones centered on the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars? There is so much possibility for an amazing story told over the course of multiple seasons that really gets into the meat of what happened and the context of Napoleon's rise to power. And since it's actual history, you don't have to worry about the series falling off a cliff because the book writer refuses to finish the fucking story. Napoleon's story could, and absolutely should, be a long-running television series. That is the only way to portray all of the complex political intrigues, grand battles, and character developments in their full glory. Or you know what? Forget a Game of Thrones-style live-action series. What if instead, there was a Napoleon anime? Think it's crazy? Well, don't take my word for it. Overly Sarcastic Productions said it best.
King George of England has a powdered wig and all this royal fancy, but Pretty Boy Bonaparte was the most powerful dude in Europe and he looks like the missing Jonas brother. Why is the Emperor of France a shonen protagonist?
Also, Napoleon is literally a shonen protagonist. Like, there is an actual Napoleon manga called Napoleon Eroica out there, which is somewhat over the top, but also legitimately good. I'm telling you, Napoleon in anime is a match made in heaven. Make it happen, Mappa. You're doing basically damn near everything. Why not this? Napoleon Anime 2025. Make it happen. So, yeah, bye.